Good morning, fifth grade. So we're going to review today for our math test tomorrow, our end of module math test. So you should have your review out. Please make sure you put your name at the top. And we're going to go ahead and start. Make sure that everything that I'm writing, you are writing as well, because this is an excellent resource for you to look over tonight to make sure you're ready for the math test tomorrow. Number one, the following equations involve different quantities and use different operations, yet produce the same result. Use a place value chart and words to explain why that's true. So we have two place value charts, so we're going to go ahead and write the first equation in the chart. We have 5 and 24 hundredths. 5 and 24 hundredths. I know where to write it because right here is where the decimal is. My whole number is 5. My decimal is 24 hundredths. And I am multiplying that by 10 to the second. I know that 10 to the second equals 100. So therefore, I am moving two places. I am multiplying, so I am getting larger by two places. So I'm going to start with my 5. 1, 2. All the numbers follow behind like nice little soldiers. So the product of that problem is 524. Let's do the next one. 524,000. I'm noticing there's no decimal place, so I'm going to be starting next to the decimal in the ones place to write my number. So that's what 524,000 would look like on the place value chart. Oh, I should have written it at the top one. Oops. So I guess I'm going to have to, when I move, I'll put my final answer up here. I am dividing by 10 to the third. I know that 10 to the third equals 1,000. I am dividing, so I know that my answer is going to get smaller, moving on the place value chart. Because it's 1,000, I'm moving 3 places smaller, so I'm going to start with my 5. 1, 2, 3. Here's where my 5 goes. All the little soldiers follow right after it. I don't need these zeros in my part of my decimal. So they do both have the same answer. This is a product, this one's a quotient. They do have the same exact answer. Now we have to explain why. So I kind of explained why as we were doing it. So in the first problem, you are multiplying by 10 to the second. So your answer it's 100 times larger. And then in the second problem, you are dividing by 10 to the third. So your answer gets 1,000 times smaller. So that would be your answer for that problem. So to substitute, you can go ahead and pause this video at this point. That way the students can write it down, and then we can begin on to the next page. All right. Next it says, use an area model to explain the product of 5 and 7/10 and 4. Write this product in standard form, word form, and expanded form. Multiply 5 and 7/10 times 4. I'm not going to require you to use an area model, so if you want to use the standard algorithm, you certainly can. So 5 and 7/10 times 4. Remember, for multiplication, we do not have to line up our decimal points, so I'm going to go ahead and start to multiply. We know that we need to multiply all of our top factors with this number 4. We ignore the decimal until the end. 7 times 4 is 28. Put down the 8. Carry the 2. 5 times 4 is 20. Add on 2 is 22. Now taking a look at the decimal places that I have in my factors, I look at the first one, and I have just a tenths place. So I only have one decimal place, so I need one decimal place in my product. So it is 22 and 8/10. Standard form is just the number form, or yeah, the number form. Next, we're going to do the word form. If you can read it, you can write it. 22 and 8/10. So that's what I'm going to write. Remember, 22 is a two-digit number, therefore we need the hyphen. And represents our decimal point, 8. And then you need your last name of tenths. And then our expanded form, we know we do the value using our place value chart. So if I'm looking at a place value chart, I'll just draw one real quick. Okay, we got 22 and 8/10. So we have a 2 in the 10 spot. I'm going to write that as 2 times 10. Plus, we have a 2 in the 1 spot. 2 times 1. Plus, we have an 8 in the 1/10 spot. And remember, you can write 1/10 as the fraction 1/10, or you could write it as 0 and 1/10. All right, so we're going to be comparing some greater than or less than, but we're going to need to build some numbers. So that's where you're going to definitely need your place value chart. And so let's take a look at what we can do here. So our first problem is 3/10 plus 12/100. So I'm going to need to start by adding those together. So 3/10, I'm going to write that, and 12/100. Write that right in my place value chart. Make it even Steven. 0 and 42/100. So I'm going to write what this equals here. Now I can compare 0 and 42/100 to 0 and 24/100. Well, looking at the 10th place, comparing them, because they're already even Steven, 4 is greater than 2, so therefore it's greater than. All right, let's look at the next one. I got to add it together. I got 14/10 plus 9/10 plus 33/100. Well, I can't write 14/10 like that. So we know we got to slide over. So 14/10 would be 1 and 4/10. So I'll write that. The next number was 9/10. And the next number was 33/100. So those are the three numbers I'm going to be adding together. I make everything even Steven. I'm going to go ahead and add. This is 3. 4 plus 9 is 13. Add on 3 is 16. Carry the 1. 1 and 1, 2. Make sure my decimal point's in. So that is 2 and 63/100. So 2 and 63/100 would be less than 3 and 53/100. Let's look at the next one I'm going to add. Whoa, 3,453/100. Wow. Well, let's look at that number. I would have to stick it all inside. 3, 4, 5, 3. I can't write it like that, but I need it to end in the hundreds. So I'm going to leave this digit. The last digit stays in the hundreds. Everything else moves over. This is a 5. Here's a 4. Here's a 3. So that number is actually 34 and 53/100. So I'm going to actually put that here, 34, so I can remember, and 53/100. Now I got to add 8/10 to it. So I'm going to go ahead and do plus 0 and 8/10. I'm going to add my place 0. So it is 35 and 33/100. Now my next problem is 4 plus 59/100. Whole number 4 plus 59/100. Added my place zeros to make it even Steven. And that number is 4 and 59/100. Well, it's obvious 35 is greater than 4, so this is greater than. All right, the next one, we're taking a look at, we got expanded form here. So we can go ahead and build our number. So we have a 3 in the ones place. Oh, we have a 42 in the tenths place. Well, let's put that down here and let's look at that. So 42 in the tenths place. Well, you can't have a 42 in the tenths place. So we know it has to move over. So it's 4 and 2 tenths. So I'm going to do that here. And then we have a 15 in the hundreds place. So once again, I'm going to take a look at 15 in the hundreds place. That would move over. It would look like this. So I'm going to write that there. And now that I know what everything's value is, I can do this large addition problem. So I'm going to go 3 plus 4 and 2 tenths plus 15 hundredths. I'm going to make everything even Steven by adding in place zeros. I go ahead and add 5, 3, 7. So that answer is 7 and 35 hundredths would be that final answer. I'm comparing it to, look at the whole numbers, 7 and 3. This one's definitely greater. All right, we're going to look at the next one. We got 15 plus 73 tenths. Well, we know 73 can't go in the tenths place. So already I remember I've got to move it over. It's going to be 7 and 3 tenths. And we have 5 times a thousandth. So that's going to look like 5 thousandths. Now we can add those three numbers together. We got 15 plus 7 and 3 tenths plus 5 thousandths. We got everything lined up. Going to add my place zeros. Now it's a much easier problem. 5, 0, 3, decimal point, 12, carry the 1, 22 and 305 thousandths. So 22 and 305 thousandths is our final answer here. Well, obviously 42 is larger. And last problem, we got to solve some problems. So here we have 0 and 4 tenths times 100 plus we have 8 thousandths times 1,000. So we're going to have to solve both of these problems before we can put it together. So we have, using our trusty place value chart, we have 4 tenths. We're timesing it by 100. Moving 2 places larger, boom, boom, 40. So this one equals 40 plus, then we have 8 thousandths times 1,000. So I'll put in 8 thousandths on my place value chart, times 1,000, 3 spots. Start here, 1, 2, 3, 8. So that problem becomes 40 plus 8, which is 48. Let's look at the next one. We have 4 tenths times 10, and we have 8 tenths times 10 to the second is 100. So let's solve that on our place value chart. 4 tenths times 10 moves 1 spot. It's a 4. Then we have 8 tenths times 100, moving 2 spots. 1, 2. So we have 80 plus 4, which is 84. So 84 is larger than 48. Let's turn to the next page. All right, we have a word problem here. We have Dr. Mann mixing. So he's mixing together these chemicals. This 20 and 468 thousandths grams of chemical A, 23 and 73 thousandths grams of chemical B, and 8 and 609 grams of chemical C to make 5 doses of medicine. It says, how much medicine did he make in grams? Estimate the amount of each chemical by rounding to the nearest tenth of a gram before finding the sum. Let's show all our thinking. So each of these numbers, we've got to round to the nearest tenth of a gram before we add them together. Mixing would be adding. So let's write each number down. Making sure you're copying the number correctly. Okay, we're rounding to the nearest tenth. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to circle each of the tenth spots. Make my little rounding symbol. Now remember, we know our rounding rule, that it's if 5 or more, add 1 more, 4 or less, let it rest. So each of these we're going to be looking next door into the hundredths place to decide what to do. So looking at this 6, it's going to bump that 4 up to a 5. So we rounded to 20 and 5/10. This 7 is going to bump that 0 up to a 1. So 23 and 1/10. Because remember, everything before it stays the same. The only number that could change is the circled number. The 0 is going to do nothing to that 6, so 8 and 6/10. So now they want us to find the sum of our estimated amounts. So we're going to do that, making sure everything is lined up with our decimal point. 5 plus 1 is 6, 6 plus 6 is 2. Or 6 plus 6 is 12, sorry, carry the 1. 1 plus 3 is 4. 4 plus 8 is 12 again, carry the 1. 2 plus 2 is 4, add on 1 is 5. Bring that decimal point right down. So it's estimated they have 52 and 2/10 grams. Label it grams. Let's box it because that's our final answer. Then B says find the actual amount of medicine mixed by Dr. Mann. So this time we have got to add the actual numbers. So we're going to line it all up. This is where your graph paper comes in handy. I'm doing it on this paper just so that you can see, but if I was actually doing it for myself, I would be using graph paper. So we're going to add that all up. 8 plus 3 is 11. 11 plus 9 is 20. Put down the 0, carry the 2. 2 plus 6 is 8. 8 plus 7 is 15. Put down the 5, carry the 1. 1 plus 4 is 5. 5 and 6 is 11. Carry the 1. 1 plus 3 is 4. Plus 8 is 12. Carry the 1. Bring down your decimal. So these are pretty close, right? Then it says, what is the difference? We know difference means to subtract. It's right back there on the wall, right above the I and W and I wonder, and it's up here on the front. So I'm going to take the greater amount, which is the 52 and 2/10, because look at this is a 1/10, this is 2/10. And I'm going to line this all up. Remind yourself, you got to make it even Steven. The greater number goes on top. I'm going to subtract. 0 minus 5, I can't. Got to go next door. Get some help. 10 minus 5 is 5. 1 minus 1 is 0. 0, 0. So my answer is 0.05 grams difference. Because I don't need those extra zeros at the beginning or at the end. How many grams were in 1 dose of medicine? Well, let's think about it. We've got this whole big amount, this 552 and 150 thousandths, and that represents 5 doses. And we want to know what one of these doses are. So we are going to be dividing 52 and 150 thousandths divided by 5. Once again, do this on graph paper. We just staple it to your test, but I'm going to set it up, pop that decimal right up. 5 goes into 5 one time. 1 times 5 is 5. Subtract, bring down. Every time you bring a number down, you put a number up. 5, can it go into 2? No, 0 times. 0 times 5 is 0. Subtract, bring down. 5 goes into 21. 4 times. 4 times 5 is 20. Subtract, bring down. 5 goes into 15. 3 times. 3 times 5 is 15. Subtract. Bringing down my last number. 5 goes into 0. 0 times. And I got that problem taken care of. So that is in one dose. So equals 10 and 43 hundredths of a gram, because I don't need that last 0. Then it says round the weight of one dose to the nearest gram. So 10 and 43 hundredths, rounding to the nearest gram, which means I'm going to circle. Nearest gram is nearest whole number. So that one's place. I'm going to look next door. 4 or less, let it rest. That means that 0 is staying the same. Everything before it stays the same. 10 grams is your final answer. You will see problems on the test tomorrow, just like this. All right, so the substitute is going to let you know what you need to do next. Have a great day.